You are listening to Cait and Company. I am Caitlin O'Connor, a local real estate agent here in Rochester, New York. And in this podcast, we are not just talking real estate, but also about life and entrepreneurship. It's going to get personal. Today, in my very first episode, I am interviewing a local celebrity, and she is spilling the tea. She's an Emmy Award-winning journalist, former news anchor, and morning host on Good Day Rochester. She left a six-figure career when her work environment turned toxic and started her own design business. And today, she is sharing how she did it and what that journey has looked like for her as a new entrepreneur and how you can do it too. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you my girlfriend and girl boss, Kris Betts. This is my first podcast.
Ever? Awesome.
Ever. Never aspired to be a podcaster, but I am today. And I'm really actually thankful for some of the experiences that I've had over the past couple of years that have brought me here. Career changes and life. And you mature. I'm in my mid-30s. Actually, late 30s now.
You can say mid to late.
Yeah.
And then
late.
it's vague.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Cait and Company, and I want to thank Hill and Valley Productions because and Tatiana because she's done a fantastic job at helping me put this together and planning it, and she makes everything really simple and smooth. And it's like no big deal.
No, and I like the lighting, so we're very happy.
Yeah. It's
Thanks
like no
for
big
the
deal.
overlighting.
So thank you, Tatiana. And I'm going to introduce you because I haven't yet, and I'm so excited. My girlfriend here, she's an Emmy Award-winning journalist and former news anchor. Most people would recognize you from gracing us with your presence, mainly during COVID. I feel like that's when I started to, we were home listening and watching the news every single morning, and that's where...
And that's literally all we talked about for 4 hours every morning was COVID.
Yeah.
For 2 years.
Yeah. When did you move here?
January of 2020. So we were starting to talk about COVID overseas and Wuhan, the lab and everything. Mm-hmm. But it was so far away. Like it didn't even feel remotely connected to anything that would affect us over here. So it'd be like, we call them in the A block coming out of the newscast. So the start of the newscast, like this would be our A block. So it's your top most important stories, like your murder, your death, your explosions, your fires. And then at the bottom would be like, and COVID. And then the kicker, right? And then coming up next, health issues. So it was something that we started barely talking about when I moved here. And then obviously things shifted in February. And then we're calling it an epidemic, pandemic. And I'm like, oh God, like this is getting bad fast.
Here.
Yeah. And so I just moved here in January of 2020. And then everything shut down in March. So what a way to come to Rochester, like
surprise.
Yeah, it was quite an experience. And we had like housing issues with different homes we were trying to buy and then moving out of and then trying to buy another one. And then we finally moved into a rental property and then did buy a house. And then we were moving in the middle of COVID by ourselves because we couldn't get a moving company to help us during the beginning of COVID.
I remember that story.
Yeah. So it was just such a nightmare of epic proportions that by the time COVID restrictions finally, were lifting a little bit and life started coming back to normal, I felt I had no idea about Rochester. Like I was stuck in a news studio or at home the whole time.
For 6 months.
Well, even longer than that because everyone was like, oh, Rochester's great. Like all these festivals, there's so much to do. I wouldn't know. They're all
because
canceled.
you came here in the winter.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was
by the way, we need to get to that story because that was the funniest story that I've ever heard. When you first moved to Rochester in the first house that you bought.
Oh my God.
But
I didn't know anything about snow. I grew up in Texas. My whole life, for the most part, was in Texas. And so, I didn't know how to drive in snow. I didn't know how to brush it off my car. I didn't even know what a snow shovel. Someone's like, you need to go buy a snow shovel. I'm like, well, do I go to the shovel store? Like, what? And there's a whole row of them here at Walmart. They don't have snow shovels in Texas at Walmart. And then a snow brush. I'm like, what's a snow brush? I'm like, you have to brush this off before you drive. Just totally ignorant about living in the wintertime. Yeah, up here in Rochester. But it was quite a way to move here and then work in news. And then, of course, as you know, and we're going to talk about, everything shifted for me mentally and emotionally and physically even after about a year of living here in the pandemic, I was like, okay, something has to change because like I am so miserable. But I knew I liked Rochester, so I'm still here.
You're here, and you're not leaving.
No, I don't think so. You're not leaving. No, Caitlin won't let me leave. I'm like really happy here now, though. It's just totally different.
So you were a former news anchor.
Yes.
You were on Good Morning Rochester, Good Day Rochester.
Good Day Rochester.
Good Day Rochester. And now you, through COVID, you've made some decisions and you catapulted yourself from a career that you were in for
13 years.
13 years. Yeah. So I was trying to think about our ages and I'm like, ooh. 15 years. It was funny.
I'm right there in my mid-30s, like right smack at 35. Yeah. So I did, and I did internships in news. I've really been working at this since I was 18. So it feels like forever, But I always wanted to do news and I thought I'd honestly die on the desk like Diane Sawyer. I wanted to be... I wanted to be a news person and I wanted to be network and I wanted to travel and be on, network news. That was it. I had one vision. And I remember, my first marriage, it became an issue because he didn't want to work and live all over the place. Every time I moved for work, which is the only way to work up in TV is to move a lot, he would have to find a new job and he wanted to be back in Austin where he's from. And we moved back to Austin and I was a news anchor there at ABC for 7 years. And I was like, okay, I need to move again to move up in my career. I just can't do it, and I wasn't willing to, especially in that marriage, we were together 10 years, but I wasn't willing to give it up for him. Mm-hmm. So we got divorced and I stuck with my career. And when I met my husband now, I was like, I call him my second husband. I should say my final husband, my second, who knows, husband. No, my husband. I told him, I said, he had a few more years till he could retire because he's a police officer. And I'm like, I need to be able to move. So like first date, get it out of the way. Even before the can you have or want to have kids discussion, it was like, are you willing to move for my career? Because it was the most important thing. I asked him that and he was like, no, I don't want to live here. I very happily live somewhere else. Like bingo. Done. And then do you want to have kids? Yes. Okay, that's it. That's like our two big conversations. Everything else we can figure out. So, that was what we did. We moved from Austin once he could retire, and I was looking at jobs in Dallas and Boston and out in California and good big markets. And I was just already kind of starting to feel like, I don't know, I just had my second daughter. Like she was maybe 6 months old when my contract was up. And I was tired. I knew network news, the way it was going. I have friends that were working network. Travel nonstop. And I mean nonstop. All year long. Like you're not seeing your family. You're gone on all the holidays. I'm like, man, I don't want to do that to my kids. It sucks. So when Rochester, the news director, found me on YouTube and reached out, I was like, what the hell? Like, where is Rochester, number one? I thought it was right outside New York City. And I'm like Googling it. I'm like, that is vastly far, not anywhere New York City.
Did you think like Westchester?
Maybe.
Or like Westchester?
I mean, growing up in Texas, there's New York City and then that's it, right? There's nothing else. There's upstate, which is like what we can, I guess an hour outside the city is upstate.
Yeah.
And then there's the city. And so I was like, oh, it's like 5 hours from the city. It's closer to Canada. But on Reddit, which is where I looked, everyone kept saying how it was a boomerang city. I'm on these like deep on a Reddit thread.
Reddit is like somewhere where people go and talk shit.
It is, and they talk shit about Rochester on there.
But that's where you researched Rochester.
Because there was a whole long thread about like what's good and what's bad about Rochester, and it's got a lot of activity on it.
Some of the things that they said.
So it was like great schools. You can live here affordably. There's good wages because it's New York, and that's true. It did pay well here. It was going to pay me the same Dallas did, and Dallas cost of living is decent too. But I mean, it goes further here, and so I'm looking at it, I'm like, do I really want to be stressed in a big city working in a big market? Or am I at the point where I can be comfortable working in a mid-sized city that has a lot to offer for families, which is another big thing. Like super family friendly. There's tons to do. There's all kinds of festivals.
And you live in Fairport.
We live in the village of Fairport now. And oh my God, I love it there. Like we walk everywhere. There's so much to do. We love our neighbors. It's a great community.
Were people like welcoming? Like during that time of COVID, so you're in the news studio, the world's shutting down, and your job is to like, there's so much. I mean, everyone's trying to figure out like what's happening right now.
I feel like everyone's so anxious.
Did you feel like there was like a sense of like there's unity here?
No.
Or was it?
No. because
what
like
did it
half
feel
the
like?
people weren't even working at the station. And there were a couple of people who made sure I was very unwelcomed there. Now, I will say there were some great, great, great people. The names of the people who've been at that station for like 50 years are amazing. But
They've been through, it's like,
they're older. They have
Yeah.
no threat to anything. But the people that I was working directly with were I maybe threatened by my presence of being new, from a bigger city and a bigger market. I don't know. All I wanted to do was try and make friends because that's always my personality.
Right.
And I've worked at many stations and never had any
and
issues.
you're confident and you
Just
have
like being
experience.
friendly, you know? Yeah. Like, I don't know what it was that triggered these certain people, but it did. And it became a nightmare to work there with these certain people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, HR got involved and it became, I had to start seeing a therapist to go on antidepressants. The schedule was really hard. Wake up at 2:30 in the morning every morning. Sucks. And then
you
I come
probably
home
have
and
babies that are,
I have to come home and have
waking
two
up
kids.
crying and
So they were good.
Yeah.
They never really wake up in the night. It was more that they were, I mean, witching hour, as parents know, is like 4 to 7, right? Like dinner time, bedtime sucks, right?
Yeah.
So I come home, to me, midnight is like 6 o'clock. So I'm exhausted. I've had, you know, most likely a terrible day at work dealing with this toxic crap at work and then talking about COVID all morning. So that's doubly depressing. And then coming home and my kids are all excited to see me, but they're in witching hour and it's 6 o'clock. I've been up all day since 2:30 in the morning.
Dan's been home with the kids.
Yeah, and he's been home with the kids, not able to
He
go
was able
anywhere.
to retire when
He retired, so he's a stay-at-home dad. Yeah. And so he couldn't go anywhere, so he needs a break, and I'm exhausted. And now the kids are all wound up. It's like my nighttime, like midnight, and I need to go to bed, and it's the middle of the evening for them.
Right.
So, you know, it's just, it was very difficult for the hours, and I never really got used to it. And so that combined with I was like, why did I do this to myself? Like, I could have gone anywhere.
Did you want
Why
to go
did I
home?
do this?
Like, go home to Austin at that
Yeah,
point
so
in
at
time.
that same time, everyone and their mom is moving to Austin, right? Like Elon Musk, every celebrity, everyone decides to move to Austin the same time I leave Austin. So now I feel like I have FOMO. I'm like, everyone's moving there. Why did I leave?
Elon Musk is moving
Dude,
there.
I could have hung out with Elon. Like, why did I leave? But I am not one of those people who likes to look back. Like, I never once regretted leaving my marriage. I never once regretted anything that I had ever done. And so even though I did want to move back, and we had a lot of discussions. Yeah, no, I was like, I know there's a reason I moved here. I feel it in my gut that was the right decision. So I never felt wrong about moving here. I just felt wrong about the job.
You obviously had a turning point.
Yeah.
And you were like,
there were a lot of turning
I've been
points.
in this business for 15 years, and this isn't healthy for me anymore. And I feel like usually it's mental first, and then it's physical.
Yeah, I was so drained mentally and physically. And I mean, I honestly don't know if COVID hadn't happened, if I would have gotten to that point. Maybe eventually. But I mean, I was successful and I was doing well. I was the youngest news anchor in Austin. I was the youngest main anchor here in Rochester when I was here.
Wow.
And
like when you were
a main
the
anchor.
youngest
Yeah.
in Austin, like as a main anchor.
The whole 7 years I was there. The
And
youngest
in
anchor.
Rochester. Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, that was one of those things where it's like, do I give up this thing I'm actually really good at, even if I don't enjoy it anymore? It feels like I was born to do this.
Yeah.
And even now, I mean, I love what I'm doing, but I still don't feel like I'm as good at it by any means as I was at TV. And that's a little bit of a hard
the process, right?
Yeah, my husband's like, he constantly asks, do you regret it? Because he still thinks, I think deep down I should have stayed with it. And that was a hard thing too, is that I felt like my husband wasn't seeing and feeling what I was seeing and feeling. And he's always been really supportive, but he also was like, don't give this up just because these people aren't nice and they're making you miserable. Just go to another station. We'll move. And that was never a hesitation. Like, let's just go. It doesn't matter where I go at this point. The business itself is what the business is. I was just going to ask you that.
Like, do you feel like because the business is changing?
It is. I mean, not
how we
a lot
get
of people watch
information
local
is
news
different
anymore.
now.
Yeah.
Is it like, do other people who are maybe quote unquote grandfathered in to this world in Rochester and the news station, are they threatened by change? Like newer people, things that are different. I don't know.
I would definitely. So when I left, if I had stayed in the business, I would have gone to a bigger market. So I would never have thought twice about Rochester News ever again. No, I mean, just whatever. And so when I left, it wasn't like this market I was stuck here and I needed to work at another station in the market. It was like I would have left to go outside this area. But I liked living here and I didn't really want to leave.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to stay in TV. Yeah. No, I like it here. I've lived all over the place. I grew up in Dallas, Austin. I lived in Pennsylvania. I was born in Baltimore. I mean, I've lived a lot of places and I've been to a lot of places. There's just something about here that's easy and nice and good about living here, and I really do enjoy it.
Well, you're giving me a warm, fuzzy feeling to like never want to leave here.
Well, that's what I tell people. Like, you don't know because you've never left, but
I never left. Yeah, I mean, I've lived a few different places, but
it's different to visit your home, because if you spend 3 hours a day in traffic, which I did in Austin on a regular basis, and it takes you an hour just to find a parking spot and get into a grocery store, and you've got 2 kids and there's long lines and super crowded. When you live in that kind of environment, yeah, everyone's moving to Austin, but think about logistically how much of a pain in the ass it is to be like, everything is crowded, like all on a Tuesday. Yes, all the time. You can't get reservations a month in advance. You got to make reservations. It's just crowded. Everything is crowded. The gym is crowded. The grocery store is crowded. And it's great because there's like a big city, has tons of stuff to do. It's really hot in the summer. So I don't want to rag on Austin too much, but I mean, there's definitely a reason we left. But being here and starting over was scary. And then starting over in my career was terrifying. But once I knew, I was like, there's no turning back. And it was really, but it was like the death of my identity. How did you know
you had that certainty? Like, because when I was thinking about like, okay, so like I was inspired to have you come on here because when we met, you were just like the things that I feel like you shared with me, things that we go through in our life. It's easier. I feel like it's easier for us to make decisions because sometimes the stakes are higher. Maybe it's because of kids or mortgages or, but like, how did you know you were certain?
Honestly, it was more of not in the moment, but who do I want to be in 20 years? Because I'm still young, and I knew that even though and it's a hard thing, is like, well, I've put this much time into it, I should just stick with it. And it's like, well, it's still 30 years of working. Right. Okay. So who do I look up to? Who am I constantly?
Confide in anybody? Like, or who
I have a lot of friends out of the business.
Was there anybody that was like giving you advice or?
So most of my friends have gotten out of TV by this point, and you see that a lot. Like a lot of people, young people will start, and then as soon as they start having families, they don't want to work holidays, they get out. So the fact that I stuck in it as long as I did, most of the people I started in TV with had already gotten out. Yeah. So a lot of my friends had gotten out. Of course, they're going to tell you it's better on the other side, is what we call it, the other side. It's, once you get out, quote, it's almost like prison. But when you're in it, it's hard to imagine life without it. And I loved it. Everyone else is burned out. I loved it. I'm like, oh my God, I would go to the breaking news things. I was 8 months pregnant with my second, covering a flood water up to my waist, peeing in the water because there's no bathroom. It's dark. You're in a flooded restaurant doing live coverage.
Being in the flood.
Being in the flood. It just flows right by. Like, where are you going to go? It's all flooded.
You said to me when we met, you were like, I was the girl that, like, if they couldn't get an interview,
they call me.
I was like you were like the bounty hunter.
Yes,
like interviews.
That's such a good analogy. I've never thought about it that way.
Thinking about when you shared that with me, you're like, when they couldn't get an interview, they'd be like, Kris, go.
And I could always get it.
I think that's so. It says a lot about like your grit and who you are as a person.
Yeah, I don't give up like a dog with the bone. Yeah. Maybe that is where my 5-year-old gets it from. Like, that is a lot like me.
I don't know. Your daughter sounds a little.
That's a very determined, strong-willed, but it always served me in that business. And I'm actually not a super competitive person, even though I was always an athlete. But in that business, I was competitive because I wanted it and I was hungry. And it was more like I needed it.
Competitive or I feel like there's such a difference here, like with how bad we want something versus like competitive or.
Yeah. I don't need to win.
I feel that way. Like in real estate, it's like, there's a gazillion real estate agents.
Right.
A gazillion, right? And I could be it's funny because like I have friends that are real estate agents. Everyone's a real estate agent these days, but I feel like I naturally just want that, where I want it and I love to help people and I know that I'm very good at it. So I will never stop. But I could have somebody next to me where I'm like, go be like, I hope you're so successful and I hope you get all the business in the world.
But I feel like there's a release to be good at your job, right?
Yeah, and I feel like there's a point in your life where like you have that sense of release of it's not you're not competitive anymore. You're like you support other people, but it doesn't change your want or your drive to be as successful as you want to be.
No,
like success.
There'd be times where other reporters would come up and be like, "What did you learn?" I'd be like, "Here, we're in the trenches together."
Share. Why not share your knowledge?
I never, ever was that asshole who like, I'm not going to tell you, or you'd have to find out why you should have been here earlier. I'm like, no, because I feel like we're all in the trenches together. I don't care if you're from the other station. Like we're all, and there would be times I got the exclusive, and of course I'm not going to share this big exclusive. But for like stuff where we're all there, it's a press conference, like I have no problem sharing. And we'd have reporters come in from like New York City to try and come down to Austin, and they do that where they're like crowding out other people and they're shoving them out of the way and. Like, this is ridiculous. We're all going to get it anyways. Don't be an asshole about it, you know? That's kind of how it felt like when I got here and I had that issue going on with these two toxic people at work where it was like, why are you being an asshole? We're literally all doing the same job.
Yeah, well, their life probably sucks.
I don't know what it was.
I'm sorry, but your life, if you suck at work or you suck as a human, like... You probably your are not life a nice is person. No different outside of news or outside of like whatever career that you're doing because it's like if you suck, you suck, and you better look at why you suck.
People kept telling me that because they knew what was happening, and they're like, "Well, they're miserable." I'm like, "Well, it doesn't make me feel any better that they're miserable. I don't want them to be miserable at work or at home because then it makes everyone else miserable, and that's what was happening." So you asked about that turning point, and I remember thinking, "Okay." I can't see myself doing anything else right now, and it's hard to let go of this now, but who do I look up to? And it's funny because when I looked at my Instagram, who I follow, who I look up to, none of them were journalists at all. In fact, I almost felt like it was sort of sad to be 60 and still being a journalist, and not that it is sad.
And you don't have an Instagram or, it was 60 and
just to be 60 and be a journalist. I'm like, why are you still like schlepping around equipment and run in the elements? Like, it's not as much fun chasing hurricanes and tornadoes in your 50s and 60s as it is in your 20s and 30s. Right. You know, like, do I want to be doing this? Do I want to be working holidays? Do I want to be working breaking news? No. And I was like, okay, who are the people I admire? Well, it was people who own their own businesses. It was real estate agents. I thought I wanted to do real estate. And
I think you'd be great.
So I always wanted to do it because the people I admired were all, funny enough, real estate agents or business owners.
Well, because what do they tell you? Like on Instagram, you have to like post about your business. Like
yes, it's marketing, right?
Post. Yes. So when you decided to make the transition into your design business. Was your husband supportive? Like, what was that conversation like? Because I feel like when you have a family.
Well, yeah, because it's your partner, right? It affects them just as much.
Your partner, your children. You moved here, so you
for the job.
Yeah.
I actually didn't decide, so I left. I knew I had to leave.
Yeah.
So we financially prepared for a year for me to get out.
Okay, and so that was like a
year-long process. Yes.
Build-up, yeah.
And even then, it was like, when am I getting out? Is it going to be another year from now? But by the end, it was like, I can't even stand another week of this. We have to get out now, and like for my mental health.
Like, good on you though, because that takes to say, hey, let's prepare a year in advance. Like, I need to get out.
I wanted to get out a year before. And so honestly, the hardest thing I did was sticking it out for that full year. But I knew there was an end goal, and it was like, just get to where we need to get the house so we can sell it, so we can downsize, so I can get out. But it was a long process. So we're in the middle of this big renovation. Now we have to wrap up the renovation, get the house ready to sell and sell it. You know, it's a whole process.
It's so surprising because usually it's like, people don't operate that way. They're like, I'm at the end of my rope. I'm done. Like, they don't recognize those signs.
Oh, I wanted
so early.
I wanted to be done. But I was like, I've got this husband who's relying on me, kids who are relying on me, this big ass mortgage payment for this big house. And so, yeah. So once we realized we can downsize, but I got to be patient, just stick it out. And I had a countdown on my phone, like calendar to retirement. I was calling it my retirement. Countdown to TV retirement. No, I had that calendar going on my phone for over a year because I would look at it every week.
What did you do? Like so you had a calendar, you were like, what was your date? You had D-Day?
I had D-Day that I was going to get out, and it was going to be January of 2022, which would have been the beginning of my 3rd year of my contract.
You beat that.
Yeah. Well, I got out earlier than that. I had to pay to get out because it's a contract. So once I broke it,
so actually making a transition, you didn't just make a transition. You paid to get the hell out.
I would have paid. I would have given blood.
You paid to get out because most people are afraid to quit to begin with.
Right.
And that's why majority of the people stay at their jobs much longer than they would, or because they have to. I mean, everyone's in a different situation. Everybody has to make money.
Yeah, I paid money to leave my job.
Paid money to leave your job, and you were starting a business.
Yes.
So
so I was still not sure, and so I got out, and I was like, okay, once I get sleep and I'm more clear-minded and I have the PTSD is lifted from this experience, then I can make a decision about my future. But because it wasn't that one career, I knew I had a little more flexibility. I don't really care at this point what I do. I just want to be happy in my life. But then I quit and I realized I did still care a lot about what I did and I needed to be passionate. So I had this sales position that was offered to me at a bank and I was like, I don't really want to do it, but it's good money and it's kind of easy. I can get in and it's corporate, so I can have the structure and the benefits. But I was like, what if, and I made a post about it and it resonated with a lot of people who I think have been thinking about switching careers because a lot of the people in the pandemic have made that decision. And it was like, won't I regret if I don't at least try? We've gotten ourselves in a position financially that I can take a risk for a year. And in my head, I was like, I love design. I love it. It's what makes me happy. It's what I think about all the time. It's a weirdly obsessed. I didn't think about news when I wasn't in news. I didn't watch news, but I follow design pages. All I think about is design. When I go to someone's house, I'm like, how can I remodel this house? All I ever think about, I drive by homes, I think about how I would decorate them. So that's all I've ever thought about.
It's funny because I'm like, somebody talks about oh, maybe we'll move in 5 years. I'm like, okay, so let's talk about the numbers, what that looks like
for
you personally, because and is it worth it to you?
That's how you know you're in the right job, though, because you
start analyzing it from a different perspective for them,
because that's what you love to do, right?
You know, and I'll tell somebody if they think, oh, maybe we might want to downsize. Well, let's look at what downsizing would look like for you,
right?
Because is it really for you or not? And it's you start,
And if you love something, you're passionate about it, it doesn't feel like work. I mean, listen, it's definitely work,
Yeah.
But when I decided, I thought, screw it, I'll try it for a year. If it's not successful, I'll get my real estate license, which I knew would also be hard, but I'll try something else. But I'm going to just give it a shot for 1 year because I really love this, just to see if I can do it.
And how did people respond when you made that post?
Everyone was like, no, it was no shit.
Nobody knew what you were talking about, but they were like, yeah, just go for it.
Just go for it. And everyone knew I loved design. It was all I was posting anyways.
They knew what you were doing.
Because I feel like that's,
I knew, I'm like, something's going on.
Yeah, they knew.
Something's going on. She's going to do something.
Everyone was like, what is it? I'm like, and then I finally dropped it. I was like, I'm starting a design business. Everyone was like, yeah, I figured that's what it was. So it wasn't some big surprise. It wasn't a big secret, but it was still very, very much oh shit, I'm doing this now. I've got to make this work. I don't want to be embarrassed if it fails.
Right, because then you're putting it out there.
It's
everyone
knows.
No room for failure.
On Google, if you type Kris Betts, it's is Kris Betts leaving Wham? Where is Kris Betts? What happened? So that's what happened, right?
I Googled, I'm like, okay, well, I know my girlfriend, but I'm like, okay, I need to introduce her to who's listening today. Yeah. And that's Reddit came up when I Googled you.
And it's people asking, where did I go? What am I doing? So I'm like, okay, now everyone knows. Right, yeah. And then the feet thing, it's a whole other thing. But it's where did I go? So I'm like, oh, I'm going to fall on my face. If I don't make this work, I mean, whatever, it is what it is. Stuff happens, but I really want to make it work. I don't want to be embarrassed. I also just want to make it work. And within the first few weeks, I had more jobs booked already than I thought I'd get my entire first year, which was a huge learning curve.
Right. And you were saying that you subconsciously knew that you were posting things about your
I was marketing
home, and you were marketing and you were you were creating a new identity before you even knew it.
It's what you
it's
do with your
subconsciously were certain about your change. And that was what I feel is so inspiring about anybody that makes a change and is creating a business for themselves.
Because you have to go in, like you can't half-ass it, right? So when you're joking that your husband says all you post is real estate, but here's the
like
thing.
one of his friends said to him, like, "Oh,
real
Caitlin's
estate.
real estate agent." Like,
But
it was done in all good fun, right?
Yes.
But it's funny because
you
it's
love
true.
it. It's what you're interested in. So there you post it. B, you may not need an agent now. You may not need a designer now. But if you've watched me and you follow, and a lot of people that just follow me from TV, and if you've watched my content enough, if someone comes like, I really need a designer. I need some help with my kitchen. Subconsciously, you've seen me posting about this stuff so long. Immediately, your mind's going to be like, oh, I know a designer. Like, I don't need a landscaper right now. But I follow a landscaper who posts all about landscaping. And I know if I ever need one, I already got it in my head. Right. So it's like that subconscious branding. You got to repeat your message over and over and over and over and over.
Over and over again.
So
and you're thoughtful in your message.
Yes,
because
it needs
I
to
feel
be
like
impactful.
That's everybody tells you, oh, you need to create video content for as a real estate agent. That you need to create video content because they have to trust you. They have to see what you do. And like the same thing with design. Like they have to see what you do. Your befores and your afters.
Right.
Your befores and your afters. You're like, okay, like how you could probably dream like before.
Yeah, that's all I do. Before and afters.
Afters, but it's like, you have to post. You have to post, but you want to post about things that are meaningful to you.
Right.
And that are important.
Yeah. So here we are,
and
it's
repetitiveness of
4 or 5 months in. I just booked a couple big jobs this week that I never, like an executive with a construction company, like a big one here that I never would have thought they'd even give me.
That's amazing.
Chance. Yeah. And it's like, they trust me to spend so much of their money now.
So you're paying for dinner tonight?
Yeah, right? No, I know. Dinner's on me. No, but it's like, wow, that's crazy to me, already that you trust me enough to bring me in. And this house hasn't been touched in 30 years and you're bringing me in to spend your hard-earned money to make it nice, and that where you live every day. And that's so special to me. And I thought I'd lose the value and fulfillment I felt when I had in TV. I was like, man, I'm making an impact. I'm telling people stories. I'm affecting the news. Now I feel almost like I'm making more of an impact because like
this
live
is their
in
life.
It. Yeah,
they
you
live
live
here.
In it.
Every home has. It was funny because I was like, I think I said to Tatiana before here, I said, when you're staging a home, I have a staging room, right? But like every home has a story.
Yeah.
And when you go in and how you present this home, you're presenting a story, and but you're also needing to create like a blank slate.
Yeah.
For people when they walk in the door.
But it needs to be it's their home. It's not mine.
Right.
So my job is to marry their wants and needs and their story with what I think will look good for their style. And it's, every house is different. Every client's different, but I love what I'm doing right now. I really want it to keep working. So
it's going to.
love doing this.
It's going to.
And I don't regret, like now the idea that I was so upset about my identity as a TV reporter, I'm like, why did I care? I mean, like so much thought and tears and fear went into that, losing that identity. And now I'm like, who cares? Yeah. I don't even watch TV. I don't care. I mean, I'm good for people who do, but like, I don't watch TV. I don't watch news. I don't care. It's my mental health is way better if I'm not watching it. And I'm happy. My life still feels very fulfilled. I'm still stressed out all the time. It's just a different stress.
Like I was gonna say, like, how are you? Wait a second. It's like a loaded question.
Super low. I mean, still
how about like
stressful
the friend
shit.
that like calls you, like, oh, how's it going?
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a second.
Do you really want to know?
Yeah, it's going. I'm busy. It's great. Oh, business looks amazing. It looks like you're so busy, and you're just like behind the scenes. There's so much. There's so much that's going on. It's like a volcano, like ready to erupt at any moment of time. But
just because you
within
switch
time,
careers,
you create priorities. You figure it out.
You reprioritize. And just because you switch careers and you're doing something new doesn't mean everything's great and easy. I mean, there's still a lot of stress that comes with it.
Social media can create
great. Everyone's like, you're living
a
the
perfect
dream.
picture, right?
Yes.
Like you're superwoman and you do so much, but it's not.
No, but it's amazing.
Like.
Honestly, though, I wouldn't change a minute of it. And I'm so happy I had all the stress of TV to prepare me for the stress of remodels because,
and contractors.
Yeah, and contractors. I love my contractor. But yeah, like I've got a great team in place now. People I trust and I know will serve my clients well. We've worked together well.
So if anybody needs a contractor, they know who to call. Yeah. That's amazing.
Thank you.
I'm so excited for you.
Thank you. I mean, female entrepreneurs are like, especially of young kids like you and I mean, a whole nother breed of people. And trying to balance it. Could we be way more successful? And if we didn't care at all about what goes on at home and we worked harder, yeah, we have that potential. But the fact that we are finding success and balancing our families and finding, and I don't do it great all the time. I fail at it every day.
I feel like that's what makes us, I feel like that's what also makes us like so successful, because you have to learn to have that control. Where like when I get super busy and I'm feeling overwhelmed, I know when I go home, I feel the stress, and it's not because of home. Yeah. Like I think that it's my house that stresses me out, but it's not that. It's because I'm not balanced and I'm not controlling myself. Yeah. And we have to like force ourselves to say, hey, we need to take like 2 steps back, because we got to find like balance. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's what makes us most successful, because we know we can be in any situation and apply it to that. Like, wait a second, things are getting a little bit out of control here. We need to like take it back, reprioritize, and we're forced to do that. Yeah, like take a time out, but we're forced to do that. And I feel like because our mental well-being needs to be there, like for our family, for our business, for our husbands, most importantly.
Oh yeah, them too.
Yeah. I'm like, my husband's my lifeline and everything in this life. He's like, so he's my biggest supporter, but yeah, I think that's what makes it so successful.
Yeah. So cheers to that.
Cheers.
And your first podcast.
And my first podcast.
You did it.
And you have to answer the questions for my first podcast. And so you're part of the book club.
Yep.
And anybody who follows me, I'm sure you guys, some of you may follow the book club, but which is part of the reason why I decided to do this podcast was the book club.
I love it. I never thought I'd be like an old lady who does bunco, and I don't do bunco. Yeah, I know you.
Well, I have a bunco.
Like, how did we get this old that we do bunco and book night? But I love book club. I look forward to it. I already read the book within a day.
Yeah.
It was intense.
It's a book club,
Can't wait for the next book club meeting. And I'm like, look at me. I'm a grown up now. I own a business and I do book club.
Yeah.
So book club. I'll start knitting next,
I just signed on to be a soccer coach for the kids.
Oh my God.
Now I'm a soccer coach. I'm like, okay, well, just add it to the list,
yeah,
right?
Not? You're not busy enough.
Add it to the list. I said to my husband the other day, we do speed dates. So I'm like, we stop in at one of the local wine bars, Flight West. Love it. Nice. So we stop there like really quick if we have like an hour between work and, our extended care. Yeah. And we're sitting there. I'm like, I said to my husband, I'm like, don't kill me. He's like, well, why would I kill you? What are you talking about? I'm like, I signed up to be a soccer coach. And he's like, listen, I'm not going to kill you, but do not complain. I do not want to hear, don't complain. He's like, I fully support you, but don't complain. But anyhow, the book club. Yeah. We do these icebreaker questions in the book club, and at the beginning of it, because my goal is for everyone to feel comfortable, everyone to feel like they belong and connect. And that was one of the main reasons why I did this podcast, is because it's like Cait and Company, right? Yeah. What's Cait and Company? My company is the company that I keep, the company that I have in my real estate business, but like more importantly, who's here right now? Like I'm connecting with you, and I feel so connected with you, and I'm grateful for you. So I have a few quick questions for you, and they're not, life or death questions, but, one of them I feel like we did at the last book club, but these are a few that have been super impactful, and I'm building it up. So
I know, like, what are the questions?
You said you're used to being
I'm used to asking them,
seat.
So I'm always nervous to answer them. I know,
right? So the first question is, and they're real quick, right? Okay. So first one is, what do you want to be known for when you die?
I like making people feel important and valued, and I hate when people don't listen. And I hate when people are distracted while like by their phones or other people or things going on. I like to make eye contact and make sure people know I'm listening and that I hear them, because I'm just fascinated by people. It's why I did what I do. And even now in design, I'm like, why do you want to design? Why do you need this kitchen redone? Like, I want to know the story of why. So heard. I want people to have met me and felt like I cared about them. Like I heard them, I listened to them. So that I wasn't just trying to network or meet them and get something out of them and move on, or I didn't hear them. That's actually, I think, my one life skill. Yeah. And my husband always says, he's like, you're really great at making people feel important. And I'm like,
that's
I
your
want
heart.
People to feel important.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they are important. Everybody's important. And I don't think we do that enough. So
I love that.
That's my thing. Yeah.
I love that.
And to make places prettier when I left them than when I got there.
Yeah.
That's my other thing.
Leave it better than you found it.
Leave it better. Even the bathroom, I'll like wipe it.
Leave it better than you found it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
there's some people
things.
that come in and they leave it worse than they found
Most
it.
people do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not me. I'll clean it up after myself. Make it a little nicer than I left it.
So to make people feel
important
and heard. And I feel like that's beyond important.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Thanks.
The next one is, what lie are you telling yourself?
Where do I start? I think the lie I tell myself is that I can't run a business because I don't have a business degree. And I still am like, oh.
So like education.
Oh my God, I'm like running. It hit me today, actually. I was like, because I got another big job. And I'm like, oh shit, I need to scale up. Like I need to hire a bookkeeper, because I'm like, this is an actual business. This isn't just a hobby. And I think the lie I tell myself is that I'm maybe not taking myself seriously enough, Some lie like this isn't going to be like a business, like where maybe I can hire employees. I just can't believe that yet.
Yeah.
Not
well,
there
I feel like
yet,
a lot of
I
people
feel
get
like
into business for the actual like act of the business, right? You're either a designer or, I'm a real estate agent and I sell houses or any type of business that you're in. You go in it for the actual act of doing the business. But then there's like, oh, wait, you have to be an accountant. You have to be a marketer. You have to do everything. Yeah.
So my lie, the lie I'm telling myself right now is that maybe that I'm not good enough to be a full-fledged business. And I'm like, I think I am becoming
But you are a full-fledged business.
Like, I need to like get my shit together and hire a bookkeeper.
You have a DBA.
I need to I got to like pay taxes and stuff. So
taxes. Let's not talk about that.
No. Next question.
I'm like, next question.
I
don't want to talk about taxes yet because
Nope.
I'm crying about that too.
Exactly.
Hey, by the way, put your tax money away.
God,
If you are a business owner, put the money away during the year. Or you better hope you have a nice savings account.
Yeah, I'm working on that. We'll get to that.
Yeah, we're getting there. Yeah.
And follow-up podcast.
And what are you proud of?
Doing it, honestly. I don't even care. I mean, I do care to succeed, obviously. But the fact that I just did it is so freaking crazy to me. I'm like, oh my God, I did it. Like, I'm here. I'm not working in TV. It still hits me. I cut my hair today, but I was like, no consultants telling me how I have to look anymore. That's so weird to me that I don't have to clear it with anybody when I get my hair changed.
Yeah.
So there's, and it's just weird that I can take a day off if I want to. I don't have to like get permission and like swap days or work a holiday for it.
Yeah. Or like I'm scheduling my appointment.
That's just weird.
Like it said 2 this afternoon.
And I booked other jobs around it.
I want to have coffee this morning. But
the fact that I'm here and I didn't have to like get a day. I don't know. The whole thing is still very bizarre, but I'm like, oh shit, I did it. So I actually wanted to turn around
on my way here.
You didn't. I know. You were telling me, you were like, wait, why did I do this to myself?
Like, I'm like, things when you say you're going to do something.
Yeah.
I don't know, like I was talking to my best friend this morning, who's also my life coach. And I was joking because, and not joking because we have like a 3-dimensional relationship where she can be like so many different people to me. But, that I gained confidence through like my life coaching and becoming certain where when you say you're going to do something, you just do it.
Yeah, you got to.
And when you do it, sometimes because we're doers, it happens so quickly that like we don't even know what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
Like I came here today and I was like, I don't really know. I mean, I know what I'm going to say, and I know what I want to get out of it with who I'm with, but it just needs to happen naturally. But it happens when you do it. Yeah. And like the imposter syndrome, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Everyone has it, though. You figure it out. And if you spend too much time planning, you'll never do it. I learned that from a podcast, Skinny Confidential, that I listened to.
I love her.
Yeah, I love them too. And they have a lot of founders. And they said, like, we had no idea what the hell we were doing. We started this podcast. Now look at it. I mean, even today, you'll probably listen to this in 3 years and be like, oh my God.
Or not listen to it.
Or not. Maybe best. But they say the same thing. Like, we just did it, though. We started and figured it out. Because if you don't do it, then it never gets done. You never learn.
And when you said you were a designer, whatever you do, you put it out there and you are holding yourself accountable.
Yeah, I got to do it now.
I
threw it out there. People are calling me.
I was like going to make the post about, hey guys, I'm starting a podcast. And it was really funny because like,
yeah, you can't go back.
My girlfriend, life coach, Stevie, she was like, I'm sure that when you made that post, and to other people, it looked like, oh, wow, she's made it. She is now doing a podcast. Wow, she's so successful. But to me, on the other side, when I was making that post, I was like, it was gut-wrenching, nervous in my stomach. Like, who do I think I am?
Yeah. I think we all
But
feel
I
that.
know that, like, my main goal is to make connections and to make people feel important, like you said. And I feel like everyone deserves to feel connected and know that they're not alone in whatever they're going through. So thanks for being with me today.
My pleasure.
And I appreciate it.
I'm so proud of you.
I'm so proud of you, too.
I feel like I look up to you in a lot of ways, even though you're only like 1 year older than me. Look what she's doing.
It doesn't matter your age because I still look up to my daughter who's 5.
See?
She's, like, amazing.
They're brave.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I love it. And we're going to have dinner.
Yeah, let's go eat.
With their husbands. So we're
starving.
Yeah.